Welcome back to Great Northwest Weaponry. This is Thomas, and today we've got a pretty cool one to take a look at. This, first off, does not belong to me. It belongs to my buddy Dylan. You may recall he did the first shots short on this rifle. This is the Spanish Mauser model 1893. This one being a 1910 dated Oviedo. I am very not certain if I'm pronouncing that manufacturer's name correctly. Spanish words, definitely not something that I am proficient in pronouncing, but it is a very neat piece. This is, again, a pretty early one, dated 1910, so pre-World War I by a good handful of years. Potential candidate for the Spanish Civil War. We'll be going over that in some more detail, but anyway, let's go ahead and hop on over to the gun room and talk some Spanish Mauser history. The Model 1893 Spanish Mauser traces its origins to kind of an unexpected place, actually. We're going to go all the way back to the Gewehr 88, which is not actually a Mauser design, though it does incorporate some design features of Paul Mauser's Gewehr 7184 and earlier Gewehr 71, namely the wing safety and the actual, styling of the bolt itself. But this gun, again, made without consulting Paul Mauser. They just adopted it and wanted a new smokeless powder cartridge, and he decided that he wanted to make something that they just couldn't look away from. Paul Mauser would very quickly create a rifle as kind of a comeback to the Gewehr 88. This would be his Model 1889, which a variation of it, the Model 1891, would be adopted by both Belgium and Argentina. This is commonly known as the Argentine Mauser. These were chambered in 7.65 by 53 millimeter, a smokeless powder cartridge. I hate my mush mouth sometimes. It angers me. Anyway, smokeless powder cartridge, which was kind of the new standard at this point, and it would be used by the Argentinians and the Belgians for a good period of time, but the design was not done. Spain had been buying a lot of guns from Mauser already up to this point, but they had a number of complaints based on combat that they were in at the time. Again, mushmouth. One big flaw noted in the Model 1891 and in the Gewehr 88 is that extended magazine that falls out the bottom of the gun is prone to getting damaged. There also were some problems with the 7.65 cartridge, so a new cartridge was developed, the 7 by 57 millimeter Mauser, and complete overhauling of the magazine system, and this is what led to the double stack Mauser magazine that we know and love today. This aspect of the gun hasn't really gone away. Now, the action on this is actually a cock on close, very similar to that of an Enfield. So that is not something that is going to be seen in some of their later designs from Mauser, so namely the Gewehr 98 and Kar 98K. But this is a very important step in the history of Mauser rifles. Now, when this Model 1893 was released, the Spanish adopted it immediately. The first handful of guns were actually made in Germany, but Spain would very quickly take over production in their own factories. They would be seen in a number of conflicts, notably the Spanish-American War of 1898 and the Spanish Civil War of 1936 to 39. The Spanish Civil War, not particularly taught in American public schools. It's not something that we hear an awful lot about, but this conflict was between two groups known as the Nationalists and the Republicans. And the Nationalists were more of a fascist-leaning new movement that was actually backed by Nazi Germany and by fascist Italy, and they would ultimately win under General Francisco Franco, who would actually rule Spain in some capacity all the way until 1975, 1939 to 1975. This was not regarded as a good thing by most of the Western world, as a number of European countries were kind of falling under what could be blanket stated as fascism, but Spanish fascism and Italian and German fascism, all three have some very stark differences from one another. Ultimately, though, it was a dictatorship, more or less. If you're Spanish and you don't like my take on that, I apologize. That's just how it reads to an American here. But a very interesting history, and these, of course, would also be seen through World War II. Production went all the way through the 1940s. I've seen some sources stating that it went all the way to 1951. There's a number of variations of them that were made. This is the long rifle version, the original, so to speak, but there was a couple of different short rifle variations that were made during World War I and World War II. There was, I think, a model 1938 or 36. There was several different later iterations of the Spanish Mauser. I'd love to get my hands on one of those and go over that in a little more depth at some point in the future, but in some capacity, these rifles stuck around until at least the late 1940s, early 1950s. And it's the design from which the Swedish M93 was derived as well. And that, arguably one of the best Mauser designs, period. Also, this same action is what one of my personal favorite rifles, right there, the American Enfield Model 1917 and the earlier British P14 were actually based on this action and not the Enfield action. So, lot of history here. Really cool gun. I'm kind of jealous of Dylan having this one and it not being my own, but maybe I'll get one of the later variations at some point. Again, there were numerous different variations of the M93, this, a 1910 pre-World War I long rifle. But let's go ahead and transition to the tabletop and take a quick look at some markings. There's not an awful lot in the way of markings to observe with this rifle. Pretty much all there is to see is going to be right here. So you've got your manufacturer, at the bottom is your date, and then right in the top there you got your Spanish crown. Bolt extraction is pretty straightforward. You're just going to open the bolt, and then you got this lever here, pull that out, and then it just pops free. Piece of cake. Reinsert, just push it in until it clicks, and then you've got to drop the ramp to slide it the rest of the way forward. And then again, with this being a double action, pull the trigger there, get the bolt to that position, and then you can close it without the gun being cocked. So let's go ahead, take this back out to the range, and put another 5 through it. Loading this rifle is going to be much the same as 90% of all rifles of its era. 5-round stripper clip. This is again 7x57mm Mauser. Gonna put it in your notch there, and then just push all the way through. Now when you close the bolt, should just kick that out, and it's a bit stiff there. There we go. Got a 3-position safety, so left position is fire. Middle, bolt can still be manipulated, should not fire. Let's test that out. Good. And then right position, bolt locked. Still should not fire. Good. Back to the far left position, and we're using just the battle sight here. Now, I'm going to be aiming low because usually battle sights on European rifles are either at 200 meters or 300 meters, more often 300. So it is very likely that this will be hitting high. We're about 85 meters from the target, realistically. So here we go, 5 shots. Maybe a bit too low. Didn't kick out the round there. That was interesting. Just didn't notice, but here we go. Try again. Maybe too high on that one. I'll try in the middle. There we go. Aiming at the bottom edge of the target. Same spot. And that one I pulled left. So, hits a little low, but not super low from that, 5-shot test there. So, there you have it. Spanish Mauser M93. Definitely a cool piece. A lot of history behind these. And again, this is the predecessor to one of my favorite Mausers of all time. So, anyway, hope you all enjoyed the video. Definitely be seeing this again in future videos. It's been Thomas with Great Northwest Weaponry, and I will see you next time.